Do you have a parent, grandparent, or ancestor who is Croatian? Are you from Australia, the USA, or any other non-European country? And are you applying for Croatian citizenship? Well, great, you're in the right place.
Alright, if you're watching this video, your last name or family name probably ends in "ich" or something similar. So stick around because we're going to get through how to navigate the Croatian citizenship by descent. Now, my name is Karl Tomic and my grandfather was born in Korčula, Croatia. I recently had to apply for my Croatian citizenship by descent, and it was a very long and painstaking process. It took me about 2 years just to find the forms. Now, you've either come here because this is your first time watching this video or because you've seen my other video, and I have been inundated with requests for people to make a follow-up video explaining exactly the process I went through to save you a lot of time and a lot of money, because it can be a little bit painful, but once you understand, it's actually pretty easy. So look, first things first, let's not waste any time and talk about who isn't qualified. Obviously, you have to have a descendant, whether it be your parents, grandparents, or even great-grandparents. They have to be Croatian and there needs to be a direct lineage. My grandfather was born in Croatia, then he moved to New Zealand where my father was born, and then I was born in Australia, thus making my granddad Croatian and also my great-granddad as well. If your family or members of your Croatian family have moved to whichever country you're in after 1991, sorry, but that actually does exclude you from this process, because a lot of people tried to move away or did move away because of the war and not for other reasons. Now also, if they happen to be a criminal or you happen to be a criminal, that is probably also going to exclude you from that process, but we're going to assume you are not. Next, we're going to need to prove that you are Croatian. Now, assumably, most of you are probably coming here through your grandparents or through your great-grandparents, and that's why you're here. Let's join the dots and try to make this easy. Now, the best thing to do is to work backwards with the documents. You're going to need your birth certificate, your parents' birth certificates, and then assumably your grandparents' birth certificates and potentially even your great-grandparents' birth certificates. And if they've passed away, their death certificates. And now let's get into how we go about obtaining them. So obviously, to get your own birth certificate, that's fairly easy. Just go to any government website, give your ID and details, and they can print you a renewed copy. Now, it's best not to have a 30-year-old version. Now, secondly, if one of your parents happens to have changed their names from getting married and it comes from their line of the family, you will want to get a marriage certificate to show where the name has changed. Now, further down the line, another reason why we may or may not want another marriage certificate for our grandparents could just be to show on record when or where people have been married, and also what their names were at the time, and also if they happen to have any children at the time. We want to document a step-by-step process showing each connection from parent to grandparent or to even great-grandparent. And now this can be done by going through the births and the death certificates. A lot of the time, you might not have, let's say, your grandparents' birth certificate. To get that, you will have to contact the Croatian embassy, and there they will ask you to provide, say, a death certificate, which hopefully you can get from your parents. And by providing your birth certificate with your parents' birth certificate and then your grandparents' death certificate, they will upon give you the birth certificate of your grandparent or your great-grandparent. All right, so now you've got all your birth and death certificates in place. You want to trace that back to Croatia. Now, once you've done that, let's move on to the next step. Proof of immigration. Now, this can come in many different forms. Depending on which country you're from, you can speak to the immigration department of your country, give them the information of your descendants, and see if they have any records on file. Sometimes you can actually find some records even online through websites like Ancestry.com or Genie. Now, these websites are also another great way to build your family tree, which you are also going to need a copy of for when you put in your application. If you haven't done the family tree, you might be surprised someone else in your extended family might have done so. And when you start to put in the information online, it actually builds out and fills out the rest of the tree. And you never know if you have a nerdy family member, because I certainly did on both sides. And when I started to put in the information, I found out a huge tree of a huge bunch of people that I was surprisingly related to. Once you have your birth certificates, death certificates, and migration records, we can move on to the next step. Filling out the application form, writing a resume, and also writing a letter as to why you want to become Croatian. You're going to need to write all of those three things in the Croatian language itself. Just to note, a few years ago, you used to actually have to speak Croatian to be able to apply for the citizenship. They actually changed that law recently, so you don't actually have to speak Croatian anymore. The last of the documents you're going to want to get need to be new, so leave them till last, and that is the criminal record check. That has to be only 6 months old before processing your application. You're also going to need all of these documents translated by an official native translator. Now, I know all of this right now can seem a lot and a little bit daunting. So there are a couple of websites or companies that can actually help you do this and save you a lot of time, a lot of money. Because myself, I actually had to do the application twice because of a mistake I did when filling out the form. The first time I filled in the application, I actually had a different driver's license from a different state. And I'd made the application and I'd gone to the appointment, and when I handed over my documents, they said, "Why is your driver's license from a different state?" And I said I'd recently moved and yet to change it over. And they said, "Well, sorry, that's going to disqualify you on the spot, and you're not going to get another appointment for at least 8 months. And that was a pain in the ass. And I wish I had known things like this before. Once you've filled in your application, got your birth and death certificates, written out your CV, your letter of intent, had them translated, you will also need them apostilled. Now, depending on which country you're from or what state or city you're in, you will go to a certain office. So for me in Australia, it was the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trading. I went there with my documents. They essentially stamped them and notarized them to make sure they were legally binding when sending over and applying at the Croatian Embassy in Australia or in your own home country. When going to the embassy, you are going to need these full list of documents. Application form, proof of ancestry, proof of immigration, your personal documents with a valid ID, also an up-to-date criminal record check that's less than 6 months old, then a biography about yourself and your motivation letter as to why you want to become Croatian. Maybe it's because your country sucks now. And if you watch my other videos, you know why I left Australia and why I like to live abroad. Or maybe your country is now being ruled by a dictator. Or maybe you just love Croatian beaches. Now, once you've got all of these documents, you're then going to make an appointment with the embassy, pay an application fee, and then you're going to wait about 2 years. Because right now, everyone wants to become a Croatian. The sooner you can get in these documents, the better, because this list of people is growing. More and more people are wanting to become Croatian citizens. I hope this has been helpful. Please leave a comment below with any of the troubles you are having. If you haven't seen my other video below, watch that before watching this one and you can find out my full personal story. So that is the long and complicated pathway to becoming a Croatian citizen, but it's worth it. Now, originally when I did this, I accidentally apostilled the wrong forms, too many forms. I ended up having about 60 pages of evidence that I put in just because I overcomplicated things and really wanted to get it through because I stuffed up the first time. Now, hopefully you're not gonna have to go through all the same rigmarole as I. My grandparent had the wrong date of birth, had changed his name, and were no records. Now, eventually I did find them all, but it took me 2 years, and that was just to find the documents. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching, and živeli.